Hello, everybody. Welcome to the official History Buffs live stream event. My name is Nick Hodges, and I am joined by a very good friend of mine, Phil Weinstein, who you may know from Phil the Issues Guy YouTube channel. Say hi, Phil.
Hey, Nick, great to be here. Great to talk to everyone on History Buffs about this movie. And hello to some of my friends from my channel that are in there. Good to be here, Nick. Thanks so
Yes.
much.
Thank you so much for coming onto my channel. This is the first time you're on, right?
Yeah, no, this is the first time I've been on here. Nick's been on my channel a couple of times talking about Game of Thrones, if people want to check that out, and some History Buffs, some backstory about History Buffs video that we did before. So huge thanks to Nick for having me on here, and I honestly can't wait to talk about this movie.
That's okay. I'm just showing everyone a clip of your YouTube channel. If you want to give everyone an idea of what exactly it is you do on Phil the Issues Guy.
Basically, thank you, Nick. Basically, what we do is we do live after shows, podcasts, live streams. We record the podcast, but we always do things live. Take calls, take voicemails from the live audience, have a really active community. We talk mainly about television shows, Game of Thrones, Vikings, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. I heard a lot of see some people in the live chat talking about Deep Space Nine, my poster in the back. We talk a lot about do after shows, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, and then we like to get the audience's reaction right away. And right now we're mainly doing Game of Thrones. We have, like I said, a real active community with some awesome folks. So definitely come on over, check out a couple of videos if you like what you see. Stick around. And again, huge thanks to Nick for having me here today.
That's all right.
That's all right.
I got one
question to ask.
You wait. Sorry, I can hear myself echo on your end. Okay, it's gone now. Cool. One question to ask. You are a big fan of Vikings, you said. Yeah?
Yes.
Why the hell did you never invite me on your show when I was actually on set in Ireland?
It's stupid of me. It's stupid of me because basically when we first started talking, I didn't want to do it as an imposition. Like, hey Nick, I know you're on Vikings and I do a Vikings podcast. Could you give me some? Blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to be that much of an asshole to truly go up and underneath you. I was playing the long game because eventually I knew that there would be a Christopher Nolan movie I wanted to talk about, and that I could.
True. No, I'm just messing with you, mate. No, of course. Okay, cool. So you got the chance to watch Dunkirk. What I was thinking about doing is, so first thing I got to say, this isn't exactly a review to my History Buff listeners. This is just our impressions of the film. One day I do hope to review Dunkirk in its entirety when it comes out on DVD. And it's simply because that allows me to use a whole bunch of clips and stuff like that. And it would allow me to make a real review that I spend like weeks researching and all of that stuff. So I know a little bit about the history of Dunkirk because I did my trailer impressions video, but my knowledge isn't as extensive as it would be if I was doing a real review. So this is just whether we like the film and maybe a little bit of history in there. So okay, so just a second. Okay, so Phil, did you like Dunkirk? Like, what's your impression of it?
Well, it's right away. I mean, it's hard not to appreciate the movie for the marvel and the cinema that it is. Did I enjoy watching it? Did I enjoy sitting in there in an IMAX where I saw it in the IMAX? Yes, it's an amazing film. It's one of the visually, everyone says this and it's true, it's one of visually the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life from a standpoint of just the clarity of it and the way it's filmed with those IMAX cameras and the way it's all integrated into one big, just amazing visual spectacle. And then the sound and the intensity that you feel. I loved the experience of watching the movie. Some people could also say something about the characters. I enjoyed everything we learned about the characters. So just overall hand there, I definitely had a good time watching the movie.
It almost feels like an art house sort of film because it's not a traditional film, you know, with a single protagonist and like it feels something a little bit different than what we usually get for a summer blockbuster.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. It doesn't feel like a typical Hollywood movie. It feels more like one of those movies where there is no main character, where the story is the central focus. And in many, if not all, of or a big percentage of big Hollywood blockbuster kind of movies, whether it's a war movie or any kind of movie, you need to centrally focus on a character to make the audience care. In this, you were focusing definitely on a huge event, and the characters, by showing you, not necessarily telling you what kind of people they are, made you care about the events that were happening. You didn't get personally inside. Whoa, that sounds dirty. You didn't get personally inside anybody.
No, I mean, like, well, basically the film's told from three different perspectives. One is by an infantry soldier on the beach. The other is through an RAF pilot, and one is with it takes place at sea with one of the volunteers, this Cornish captain, taking his little sailboat all the way to Dunkirk to rescue the men trapped on those beaches. But I mean, there's a few things that kind of took me a little bit off guard. It's mainly how the narrative sort of goes. It was kind of like Memento in a strange way. Did you get that same sense?
Yeah, it definitely plays with it, and you're not sure what's happening when, and the way that it all comes together to at the end to combine all the three storylines. I don't know how much, and this is a question for you, Nick. I know it's a history movie, it's a factual movie. How much of what happens in the movie can we spoil here? Is it been out enough?
I think if you don't know how Dunkirk played out, so something, and you're watching a channel called History Buffs, I can't help you. Okay.
Okay, fair enough. So ultimately, when everything sort of comes together at the final storyline, it does feel very Memento, like, oh, okay, I figured it out. But it's not like a Christopher Nolan movie where the mystery is the follow through the whole movie. They're pretty direct about what the mystery or the timeline thing going on. Did you like all three timelines? Do you wish they focused more on one timeline rather than the other?
Actually, I'll be honest with you. My favorite timeline was with the pilot and the Cornish captain. Personally, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mr. Dawson.
Yes, Mr. Dawson. Yeah, and the Mr. BFG. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought Cillian Murphy was excellent in that storyline specifically. I liked it better with what happened. The beginning of that was a little on the nose, so to speak, but like the way it ended off with Cillian Murphy and how that all concluded, I thought was exceptionally done.
I agree as well. Sorry, I can hear myself echoing. Is this on your end?
I don't think so. Let me try this.
Try that again. No, I'm fine now. I can't hear myself. No, I thought like one of the things it does extremely well is that it involves you in the action. So one of my favorite sequences in the film, and actually you could see this in the trailer, so I don't think I'm spoiling very much. Do you remember when they are on that destroyer, that ship, and they're leaving, and they get by a torpedo?
Was it the thing at night?
Yes, it was. I can't remember if it was a hospital ship or if it was a destroyer, but they're just everyone's having jam on toast downstairs, and then a torpedo comes out of nowhere and smacks it, and it's all kind of like handheld sort of action, and you could see the water rising up. I mean, that was one of the tensest moments in the entire film.
It was almost Jaws-like in that moment.
Yeah,
because it looks out and then you just see the wave coming in the water. And at first I was like, what is that? It just didn't occur to me that it was coming from a U-boat or something like that. Yeah. I was like, holy shit. And then everything just blew up. It was really intense. And that's the best aspect of this movie when it really comes down to it. The Germans aren't necessarily depicted as...
They're barely depicted. I mean,
they're a force of nature, Nick. That's all they are.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, and you see them. I think really only at the end of the film, like some German soldiers in real life, but otherwise it's always planes or. I think that's it. You really only see the Germans like flying above.
With talking about one of the few historical inaccuracies about the movie, and it's a minor thing, but Christopher Nolan explained that he put the yellow circles at the tips of the
nose.
On the nose, just to differentiate them when someone quickly watched them, but that didn't actually happen in the war till I think a couple months later or something like that.
Actually, from my research, it was just a month later, but that is absolutely fine. I don't really nitpick historical inaccuracies like that. I mean, I guess if we could go to the historical inaccuracies now, Let me just pull up my notes and have a look. So another one is that since they actually used real ships, they didn't have any British destroyers. They had to use a French destroyer in that sequence. But I'll be honest with you, that doesn't bother me because they're using a real ship. I have this real, affinity towards CGI. I don't mind it. I think it's serviceable towards these films. But there's something about having a real ship or a real battle sequence going on without computer-generated images.
It mattered so much, especially in those dogfights. That was so I've never been in a plane like that, but just how I imagine it must feel. That was just so amazingly depicted, and that was some of the great cinematography aspects of it were in those sections of the movie where we really expanded on the sky, and you just felt almost like, again, being in an IMAX watching it, almost like when you go to one of those old science movies at the original Omni IMAXs where you're in a motion odyssey kind of ride. At times, and that's one of the reasons, definitely if you can see this movie in IMAX, it tickles all of your senses. Absolutely. It scared me a couple times. I jumped out of my seat.
Yeah, no, I think it's really set the bar for how dogfights should be. And they created some new sort of camera technology to allow for those giant IMAX cameras to be in the cockpit or on the wings of the plane. I think future World War II films, if they plan to use dogfights, they really need to step up their game.
Yeah, I would say even more so that not even just World War II stuff. I know this is a super cheesy movie. Someone's like, why are you even going to mention this now? They're doing Top Gun 2. But even if you're doing Top Gun 2, it better be as good, if not better than this. This is the new standard for any kind of dogfight. It just felt so natural.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think Top Gun could work because those dogfights go way too fast. You know what I mean? So those planes would be passing each other way too quickly, as opposed to World War II, where I could see the little guy. He's somewhere over there. You know?
Except a good point. So they'll probably do more. I know people are like, why the fuck are you talking about Top Gun 2?
That's all right.
But they'll probably do CG with that.
Yeah. So that's fine. But if we want to go to things that actually sort of bothered me in the film, I don't know, Phil, maybe you might think or feel differently than I do.
No, this is something that bothered me too when researching the history stuff aspect. I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that this also bothered me because of how these people were portrayed in the movie, that when I researched the reality of it after the fact, knowing I was going to do this podcast and didn't want to sound like a complete idiot, well done, I was like, holy shit, they did that and that wasn't shown in the film.
What's that?
The French, with the French's involvement in that situation with holding the line. They never kind of went back and showed you that. They made the French seem like cravens, like, get me on the boat. And that Kenneth Branagh's character, Bolton, had to save them at the end or something like that. Or they didn't even really get into how that the whole situation wouldn't have been possible if the French didn't hold the line.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. It was something I mentioned in my Dunkirk trailer impressions video that I hope that they do justice to the French involvement at Dunkirk, because one of the big things in the film that sort of bothered me is that for the vast majority of the time, all the Allied soldiers evacuating were British. And I don't think we ever saw any Kiwis, Canadians, or Aussies. I'm pretty sure that they were there too. But as for the French, they made up about 38% of the evacuees. So it's about 120,000 French soldiers that we never get to see. And any of the French that weren't being evacuated, they were actually in Dunkirk fighting off the Germans. They were the rear guard, and they suffered very heavy casualties before the last of the boats left. So I don't know why Christopher Nolan, did it this way. I guess he's thinking this is for an English-speaking audience, but personally I feel that the French get a very bad rep when it comes to the Second World War because they surrendered. But I think we should definitely celebrate a lot of those French soldiers who died trying to save the lives of their countrymen, and also the Allies who were trying to evacuate. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, they were just shown in a very peripheral sort of way, and I don't even remember a Canadian or a Kiwi or any of the other countries even being mentioned, really. Which it was an English story; it was focusing on that. I does not mind, but the choice of having some of them being like, let us on the boats, let us pushing on there, and not focusing at least as much attention on even for a second of atmosphere of showing what the line was like that they were holding, I think would have been effective to at least show that it wasn't, that there was cravens on both sides. There's cravens everywhere, but they were such an important part of this shit actually going down.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and someone just corrected me on the chat saying that there weren't any, Kiwis or Aussies or Canadians. Like, I'm not sure. I haven't fully researched on it as much.
I thought there were Canadians, but
I thought so too, actually. But if there was just British and French people there, then then I apologize for making that mistake. But so anywho, so. The other thing I wanted to point out is how much they downplayed the violence of the Battle of Dunkirk. And what do you think about it? Because some people argue the point that not every single war movie needs to show blood and guts and that sort of thing. I'd like to hear your opinion about it.
It's such a tough thing because it's one of those aspects that I didn't occur to me necessarily till I started to listen to some people talking about it. And then I started to think about it, and it makes a lot of sense. Where we just don't see, we see someone get blown away and then their body's just gone, disappeared. It's not as, they wanted to make it more palatable. But then I have another aspect of me that's, okay, they also wanted to make it for a more wide audience, and they could have brought more people in if it wasn't rated R.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bring a kid to this.
Yeah,
but
no,
I wouldn't
don't get it. Like, it's not going to compete against Marvel movies.
It's not.
This is for a mature audience.
Should have been. Yeah. They should have gone all the way with it.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that if not for a fact. I know if some 12-year-olds went to go see this movie, they would probably be really bored unless they were hardcore history buffs. I mean, this is definitely for a mature sort of audience. But I guess they're trying to, by trying to reach out to as many people as possible, you kind of left a big part out about this battle, is that it was not a comfortable sort of experience. Like, one of the things that sort of made me laugh in this film is how when the main protagonist at the beginning of the film, he leaves Dunkirk and he gets on the beach and you just see people
Tommy.
Yeah. Yeah, you see all these British soldiers queuing up, so lining up at the beach orderly, and it doesn't seem like there's exactly much going on. I mean, where are the wounded, like, screaming out, in pain?
You get it for a half a second where you see a body being buried in the sand.
Yeah.
That's all, right in that very beginning. That's as much as you get it. You should have got more chaos, but like at the end of Titanic, when everyone's trying to get onto the boats and it's like people shooting and pushing, there should have been a little bit more craziness, and especially where I agree it was a sense of the doom came from the sound. It came from the unexpected way that the Germans would just come out of nowhere, but it wasn't sort of conveyed always as a constant sense of uncomfortability, the uncomfortability of that many people being stuck on that beach.
Right, yeah, but I just think that it would add to the sort of paranoia, because there was a bit when one of the soldiers goes up to this one queue, and the guy's like, "Grenadiers, mate, you're not supposed to queue over here, you're supposed to queue over there." And it's like, oh, okay, I'll just do that. And I feel like if there was like R-rated sort of violence, it would add to the horror. Like that opening beach scene in Saving Private Ryan. You definitely wanted to get off that beach as quickly as possible. Whereas here in the film, it's like every now and again you see a Messerschmitt like bombing the beach, and everyone lines up again. Back to the way they were.
Did you like how the Germans were portrayed in this as a sort of invisible enemy?
Yes, I do. I suppose so, but I wanted to see more of them, and this comes across. This introduces another historical inaccuracy that I'm not so cool with. And okay, so one of the cool things that Christopher Nolan did is he actually shot in Dunkirk. The real Dunkirk. But when you see Dunkirk, it looks abandoned, like everyone just left all of a sudden. But it's not in ruins. Like, the Germans were bombing the shit out of it. And we don't see that many civilian casualties or like dogs, cows, horses, that sort of thing. It's a very orderly sort of retreat, and I feel like it should feel more apocalyptic. This is the end of the fall of France right now. And we should see the fear in our protagonist's eyes.
Instead, it's more of a waiting game. Like, it was just about the uncomfortability of it all, not the fear that if the Germans had pressed here or not waited the amount of time that they did, that this could have all been over, that they could have destroyed everybody, and they probably all knew it, and that the soldiers and everyone felt probably not dumb, but like that. And we got a little bit of that at the end, where they're going to think we're with Harry Styles' character and what he's saying at the end.
Yeah.
They felt like idiots and stuff like that. But I think there could have been even more of an aspect of that, of desperation, of how much they felt like they were just in a doomed scenario.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, Harry Styles was quite strong in this film. Like, everyone was...
I didn't even know who he was. I didn't even know who. And I turned to Stephanie. I kept going, "Is that Harry Styles? Is that Harry Styles?" Yeah. And then finally he came out, and I'm like, "That's." And then it was the scene where his big scene where he freaks out and stuff. And I was like, "That's Harry Styles." I was really surprised. He did an excellent job in this film.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like, my brother had to point him out for me. I was like, "That's Harry Styles, the guy who actually has the most lines in the entire film."
Yeah, the guy that gets...
Yeah. Because everyone's kind of quiet in this film. I don't know, like, it's like a Sergio Leone sort of experiment where emotions are conveyed through the characters' expressions rather than, you know, what they're saying. I mean, there is of course some dialogue, but there's the main protagonist from the beachfront barely speaks. You know the one I'm talking about, the one with the black hair?
Yeah, I think his name's Tommy.
Tommy, yeah. See, I don't even know that. It's like, how many
no,
lines
because you don't have to. I had to look it up. I didn't know his name. I definitely had to look this up, and I think I want to say the other character's name might be Alex or something like that, but I have it somewhere. But yeah, the only character I kind of researched all the characters, and I think the actors did exceptional jobs with what they had to do, especially with the guys on the beach and how they could portray. And I have to say, one of the bigger surprises, and I don't know why this surprises me, because sometimes I find him cheesy, and like I really like Kenneth Branagh in this role.
I do too, yeah.
He commanded so much, and he added a different color to his performance that no one else in the movie had. This way of making it this personalization. I think it's just the way he acts. And I know he's an amalgamation of a couple of different people. He's not a real character, but I don't mind that sort of stuff too, to kind of have a central focus from a historical standpoint in a movie like this. And I thought he, in an alternate universe, he could have been an even bigger character in this film. I thought his performance was one of Kenneth Branagh's best movie performances in years.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there's something I also wanted to ask you. Like, as an American, I imagine that your familiarity with Dunkirk is not as strong as when your country entered the war. So, what was it like seeing this British perspective?
See, it's interesting because I had heard the expression Dunkirk spirit before. I want to say there was some sort of interview where where one of my favorite rock stars, like Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, or the Beatles, like said that in an interview or something like that. But But so I didn't even really know, and history was something that I have an exceptional interest in. But when it comes down to it, I think a lot of people, I know more about American history than I know about world history, and as you mentioned, coming into World War II. So this was an event that I didn't know much about, but as learning about it, reading about it before I saw the movie, and then reading more about it after seeing it, I'm surprised how many times and how many different situations that this story has probably been referenced. I knew more about it without even knowing it. I'm like, oh, I've seen this in this movie. I can't even picture which movies I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you can tell how many times that this story has been stolen. And then it sort of refreshed what I remember reading about it in school. But I think it's more of something you learn as just half of a chapter in a world history book. It's not something that's focused on as much, where I imagine, and I'd love to hear your perspective of that, in Britain, it's probably one of the things that you learn right away in school, right? It's like a hardcore thing.
No, the Dunkirk spirit is something that has definitely stagnated with the British public ever since this event. And although actually what happened to Dunkirk, it does bear a lot of analysis from a lot of historians, whereas we have the Dunkirk spirit, which the British public galvanized together to save its boys trapped over there, and then you got the absolute colossal military disaster. And
is it just a credit to Churchill's good PR and good way of being able to spin something? Is that what created this legend around it?
Well, actually, I don't think so, because Churchill does acknowledge that this is a military disaster. and he did prepare his people for what would happen next. But the story of those fishing boat captains and yacht crews going actually out to rescue some of the men trapped on Dunkirk definitely inspired the British public, saying that, you know what, we can actually make it through this. Even though the reality of it was that they only made up a minority of the people who actually rescue the men off those beaches. Most of the time, those little boats were commandeered by
Navy captains and stuff like that.
Exactly,
they would take ships.
Yeah, most of the guys who were rescued off those beaches were put on giant destroyers and ships and stuff like that. Which is
I just want to send out some love to the live chat right now to Ryan Baker, who just gave you a super chat donation saying Dunkirk is amazing. Thank you, Ryan Baker, for the super chat donation for Nick and all the
thank you very much.
And the support for the live stream. Thank you so much for everyone that's been joining us today in the live chat. We see you guys there. You guys are fucking awesome.
Thanks very much, Phil. I was just trying to get all my thoughts together while I was doing the show, so I haven't looked at the chat.
No. I'll keep an eye on it. Thank you guys,
absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. So, overall, I guess I did really enjoy this film, and I do think that I need to watch it again because, as someone who takes history very seriously, I was watching it with critical eyes, trying to spot if they were being faithful in one area and not faithful in another. But overall, I did really enjoy this experience. And those inaccuracies don't really bother me too many times. And you know what? I think if I had a second viewing, maybe a third viewing, a fourth viewing, that might have a greater impact on me. Or what do you think?
I think so too. My whole thing is I definitely want to see it again once in the theater and get that huge theater feel. And I hope this is one of those movies that often comes back to IMAX. It's something in the day and age that we live in. I wonder why they don't do that more. They have just like a theater that has a big IMAX or has a big awesome movie theater that they show more old movies. It tends to be more of an art house thing that they do in art house theaters around where I live. And I'd love for them. This is a movie that I cannot wait to see and own and watch and stuff. But it is a theater movie when it comes down to it. That's the truest way to watch this. And I think even regardless of what I think about the movie, I think Christopher Nolan made the exact movie he wants to make. And that's why he's bringing you along. Yeah. He's not making this movie for anyone else. He's just bringing you along.
Exactly. I think he's the only director who could actually bring a historical film and make it a summer blockbuster. Like, that just blew me away when it was first announced. Like, really? They're gonna make it go. They're gonna have it in July, which is like one of the biggest months of the year.
And from Harris Me Brothers, you guys rock. Keep on the good work. Greetings from Netherlands. A $5 donation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. So, great. Okay. Well, I think that's about ended the show, but if you wouldn't mind hanging around, Phil, I just need to do a couple of quick updates since haven't had a chance. Okay. So, a while back, I was saying that I was going to upload the review for the Bounty, and unfortunately, I have decided to cancel the review altogether because after the script was written and it was edited, I just felt like it was an absolute piece of shit. Seriously, Phil.
Do you mean the review or the movie?
The review, not the movie. This is the worst video I had ever made. And I was watching this back, I'm like, my God, if I post this on my channel, they're going to crucify me. And I tried to fix it a few times, whether it be through the script or through the editing. But I think I need to just take a break and then come back to it with open eyes. So basically, it was my Star Wars Christmas special. So unlike George Lucas, who actually released that bloody thing,
you should burn it now before someone finds it and plays it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but good news. Also, I am doing my next review is going to be Rome. I know that many of you are fans of HBO's Rome. You're a fan as well, mate, right?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. It's not my favorite of the HBO series compared to some of the other ones, but I think it was very, very well done. And because of it, is part of the reason why we have Game of Thrones. It was a good transitional series for HBO.
I was just about to say that. I really don't think if there would be Game of Thrones without HBO's Rome. And I was a hardcore fan of the show, and the fact they cancelled it after 2 seasons, it's like they were just putting their feet in the water, just trying things out before they went into a much bigger show, which I'm happy about. And of course, Game of Thrones is, one of the best shows of all time, since you help dedicate your channel towards it.
Yeah, it's and I think Rome could have been something, and I think it was really good in those seasons, but I think it could have been something even greater if they had given it the time to grow in the way that HBO gives series time to grow. Those like 7 season of an HBO series, which is the go-to of like of Sopranos, of The Wire, of all those shows. It's like 5, 6, 7 seasons they tend to give people, and Rome kind of got gypped out of that.
Yes, unfortunately. So anyway, so I'm working on that. I'm trying my best to, with the script as possible, because one of the tricky things about the show is that it covers 20 years of history in 2 bloody seasons, Phil. Like, trying to condense all of that down within, a single episode is ridiculous. Actually, speaking of which, I think what's most likely going to happen is that I'm going to have season 1 be a single video, and season 2 will be in the next part. That's the only way I think I can make this sort of work. So, yeah.
Ooh, Nick, the live chat, Becky says, for $10 donation for scrapping a review you don't want to show, ! Quality equals happiness. So.
Oh, thank you very much. That's I thought people were going to get pissed. Like, no, show it anyway. I'm like, guys, you don't want to watch it. It's really awful. So, yeah. Okay, so the last thing I'd like to mention is a shameless promotion of History Buffs merchandise, which we have over at Teespring. If you guys feel like supporting the channel, there's an option for it. I'm going to post this as a link in the description box for the video when it gets archived. But if you feel like going over, then feel free to help yourself to some History Buffs mugs, t-shirts, and etc. And with that being said, that's it for this show. So thank you very much, Phil, for coming on.
No, thank you, Nick, for having me, and I cannot wait to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe next time we'll be on your show. I really like that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, cool. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.